People always ask me what the worst part was: the shot, the wait, the not knowing, and I tell them the same thing every time. The worst part was the silence, not the storm. The silence inside the storm when the radio finally stopped trying. Let me back up. My name doesn't matter much for this. Back then they called me Quill. I was a scout sniper, 24 years old, and I had been on exactly 2 real operations before the night the sea tried to eat 6 men I had never met. It was supposed to be simple. That's the joke we all tell right before nothing is simple. We were sitting off a stretch of coast that doesn't have a name you'd recognize. A long curve of black rock and jungle, a fishing cove, a few stilt houses that had been empty for years. The kind of place that looks peaceful on a map and feels like a trap the second your boots touch it. There was a target ashore, a man who moved weapons through that cove, and a 6-man SEAL element was going in quiet to take him. My job was Overwatch, that's it. I was put on the high ground, a ridge maybe 800 meters back from the water, tucked into a tangle of roots and wet stone. I had a spotter with me, a quiet kid named Akaffer who chewed gum like it owed him money. Our whole purpose was to lie still, watch the beach through the scope, and make sure nobody snuck up on the team while they worked. Lie still and watch, that was the plan. I remember the weather brief said the storm would track north. They said we'd catch the edge of it, some rain, some chop, nothing the boats couldn't handle. I remember nodding like that meant something. The storm did not track north. We were 2 hours into the watch when the first real wind came. Not a breeze, a wall. It came up the ridge and bent the trees flat and threw rain sideways into my face so hard it stung. Akaffer grabbed my sleeve. I could see his mouth moving, but I couldn't hear a word. The world had turned into one long roar. Down on the cove, the team had already moved inland. I'd watched them go, 6 shapes sliding up the beach and into the tree line, smooth as oil. Bishop was the team lead. I only knew that from the radio, that low, calm voice checking in every few minutes. Overwatch, this is Bishop, you got eyes. And I'd press the button and say, Bishop, Quill, I got you, all quiet. It felt good to say it, all quiet, like I was holding something steady. Then the storm took the cove. The rain came down so thick the beach just vanished. 1 second I had the whole curve of it in my scope, the boats waiting offshore, the dark mouth of the jungle. Next second there was nothing but gray, like someone had drawn a curtain across the lens. I wiped it, cleared it, wiped it again. Same nothing, water running into my eyes, into my collar, everywhere. Overwatch, Bishop, his voice came through, chopped up, breaking apart. We have contact, say again, we have. And then it cut. I waited. You always wait. You tell yourself it's the storm, it's the antenna, it's anything but the worst thing. Bishop, Quill, say again your last. Static, a long hiss of static that rose and fell like breathing. Akaffer was already trying the backup channel. I watched his face. He wasn't chewing his gum anymore. That's how I knew it was bad. He looked at me and shook his head, slow, and water ran off the brim of his cover in a steady line. I keyed the radio again. Any station, this is Quill, do you read? Nothing, the storm had swallowed it whole. Down there, somewhere in that gray, 6 men had just said the word contact, and then the world had cut the cord between us. They were calling for help and the help could not hear them. The sea had reached up and put its hand over their mouths. I want you to understand something about being a sniper that nobody tells you. The whole job is built on patience. You are taught over and over to wait, to not move, to let the moment come to you. Your worst instinct is to act too soon, so your entire body learns to sit on its hands. And there I was, lying in the mud, trained to wait, with the only thing I knew for certain being that waiting was about to get people killed. I will never forget how heavy my own hands felt in that moment. Akaffer leaned in close, shouting right into my ear so I could hear him over the roar. We move, we go down there. I almost said yes. Every part of me wanted to get up and run down that ridge into the gray, but I knew what we were, 2 people, 1 rifle. If I left my position I'd be blind and useless, a rifle stumbling through the dark. The one thing I had, the one thing in the whole world that might matter, was a clean line of sight from up high. If I could just see. No, I shouted back, we hold, I need eyes, find me eyes. So we did the only thing we could, we tried to see through the storm. I lay there with my cheek welded to the rifle and I waited for the rain to thin. Not stop, just thin. A storm like that breathes. It comes in walls and waves, and between the waves there are gaps, half a second, a full second, where the curtain lifts and you can see again before it slams back down. I started counting the gaps. It took everything I had. The rain was hammering my back like fists. The The cold had gotten into my fingers and I kept flexing them slow so they'd answer when I asked. My eye was straining so hard into that gray that it started seeing shapes that weren't there. That happens. Your brain wants to find something so badly it invents it. You have to throw those away and keep looking. Then the curtain lifted. For one full breath the beach came back, and I saw them. Not all six, four. Four shapes pressed flat behind a low spine of black rock at the edge of the tree line right where jungle met sand. They were pinned. You can read it in how a body holds itself. These men were not moving forward and they were not moving back. They were stuck, hugging the rock, and the rock was the only thing between them and whatever was shooting at them. Where were the other two? The curtain came down before I could find out. I lay there in the dark with that picture burned into my eye, 4 men behind a rock. The boats were offshore, but the boats couldn't move in this, couldn't see, couldn't hear. The team's radio was dead to me and probably dead to everyone. Their SOS had gone out into the storm and the storm had eaten it. And nobody knew. That's the thing that still gets me. Somewhere out there a whole command was sitting in a dry room watching a screen, and the screen just said the team had gone quiet, and quiet could mean 100 things. Quiet could mean they were fine and just keeping comms tight. Nobody in that dry room knew that 4 men were dying behind a rock in the rain. The only person who knew was a 24-year-old lying in the mud 800 meters away, with a rifle and a sick feeling and not enough light to see. The curtain lifted again. This time I made every fraction of that second count. I went left to right across the picture fast the way you train, 4 men, the rock, the tree line, and then I saw the muzzle flash. Up in the rocks above them, higher ground, the high corner of the cove where the cliff stepped down to the beach. A single flat orange flash there and gone, then another. Whoever it was had taken the one good position on that whole beach, higher than the team looking straight down on them. The team couldn't lift their heads. Every time they tried, that flash came again and the rock chipped and they pressed back down. One shooter, maybe more, but one for certain, and that one had them completely. As long as he held that corner, those men were never moving off that beach. The storm would rise, the tide would come, and they would die there, pinned by one man and a position. I had found the lock on the door. The curtain came down. I lay in the black and I did the math the way you do when your whole life has been training for exactly this and you still can't believe it's real. Here is what nobody understands about a shot like that until they've tried one. In a classroom, 800 meters is a number. On a clean range, on a still day, with a target you can see for as long as you like, it's a hard shot but an honest one. You read the wind, you adjust, you breathe, you press. The bullet goes where the math says. That night there was no math that held still. The wind wasn't a wind. It was a thing alive, slamming up the ridge in gusts that would shove my rifle a finger's width to the left and then vanish and then come back from a different angle. Rain that heavy actually pushes a bullet. It pushes you too. My whole body was being shoved around in the mud. The light was nothing, just the gray glow of a stormy night and the half-second flashes of a man trying to kill the people I was sent to protect. And I could only see him for a heartbeat at a time. You can't range a target you can only see for half a second. You can't read wind you can't feel between gusts. Everything I had been taught assumed time. Take your time. There was no time. There was the gap in the curtain and the gap closed and behind the gap men were dying. Akafer was on the spotting scope and bless him, he was trying. Wind's all over, he shouted. Can't call it, Quill, I can't call it. I know. You can't make that, not in this, nobody could. And he was right, that's the part I think about most. He was completely right. By every rule I knew, that was not a shot a person should take. Miss, and I'd give away my position to a shooter who would then have all night to find me. Miss low, and I might hit one of our own men. Miss high, and I just told the enemy exactly where the threat was. I lay there with my finger off the trigger, rain in my eyes, and I felt the whole thing balance on a single point. Take a shot I had no business taking, or watch 4 men get killed because I followed the rules. I thought about Bishop's voice, that calm low you got eyes. He had trusted that. He had walked his men onto that beach trusting that someone up high had their backs. The 2 missing men I never let myself think about right then, just the 4 behind the rock, 4 men who didn't know if anyone in the world even knew they were there. Somebody knew, I knew, that had to be worth something or it was worth nothing. I made a decision that I have never once regretted and that I would never tell a younger sniper to make. I decided I would not range him, I would not chase the wind, there wasn't time for any of it, I would learn the shooter instead. Because a man in a fixed position has a rhythm. He fires, the recoil lifts him, he settles, he fires again. Flash, settle, flash. If I couldn't see long enough to do the math, then I would feel his timing in my chest until I knew exactly when the next flash would come, and I would already be there when it did. So I stopped trying to aim at where he was. I started aiming at where I knew he would be. I watched 4 gaps in the curtain just to learn him. Flash, count, he was steady, disciplined. Whoever he was good, and that steadiness was the only gift he was ever going to give me. A panicked man is impossible to predict. A calm one keeps time like a metronome. I set my hold on the high corner of the rocks where the flashes came from. I built my whole body around that point. Feet, hips, elbows, cheek. I made myself into a tripod of bone and stopped fighting the wind and started moving with it, letting the gusts rock me a little and bringing the rifle back each time like a needle finding north. "Akafir," I said, "when I fire you watch for Splash, tell me where it goes, we may only get one before he finds us." "You're really doing this?" "Call my shot." The curtain came down hard, a solid wall of rain, the heaviest yet. I couldn't see my own hands. I could not see the beach, the rocks, the men, anything, just gray and the roar. But I had his rhythm now. I closed my eyes for a second, which sounds insane, and I counted. Flash I knew was coming. I felt it more than I knew it. My finger took up the slack on the trigger, not pulling, just resting against the wall of it, the way you rest your weight against a door before you push. I opened my eyes. The curtain lifted. The flash came up out of the rocks exactly where I knew it would, exactly when I knew it would, and my crosshair was already sitting on it, and the wind in that 1/2 second went still, the way a storm sometimes holds its breath, and I pressed. I didn't hear the shot, the storm ate that too. I felt the rifle buck against my shoulder, and that was all. For 1 full second the whole world hung there. Then Akafir made a sound I'll never forget, not a word, just a sharp breath, almost a laugh, a sound that came out of him before he could think. "Down," he said, "he's down." The flash stopped. Quill, the flash stopped. I didn't believe it. "You don't?" "Not right away." I kept my eye on that corner, waiting for the orange to come back, waiting to be wrong. 1/2 a second, a full second. The curtain came down and came up, and the corner of the rocks stayed dark. Dark, no flash, no more. And on the beach, the 4 shapes behind the rock moved. That's how I knew it was real, not because I saw the man fall. I never saw that. I knew it because the men I was sent to protect lifted their heads for the first time in I don't know how long, and nobody shot them for it. They started to move. I have thought 1,000 times about what those next minutes were like for them down on the beach, and I'll never really know. But I watched it through the gaps in the storm, and I'll tell you what I saw. The 4 shapes came off the rock low and fast. They didn't run. They flowed, the way men move when they've trained their whole lives to move under fire and the fire has just stopped. 2 of them peeled toward the tree line, and out of the dark 2 more shapes came down to meet them. The missing 2, they were alive. They'd been pinned somewhere else along that spine of rock, cut off from the others, and I'd been so afraid to think about them that I'd just walled it off. But there they were, 6, all 6, low and moving, pulling toward the water. The radio crackled. It came out of the dead static so suddenly that I flinched. Bishop's voice, ragged now, none of that calm left in it, but his voice. "Overwatch, Quill, if you can hear me." "Bishop, Quill, I read you," I was almost shouting. "I read you, I have you go. Threat is down, we are moving to the surf, do you have eyes on the high ground?" "You're clear," I said. "High corner is clear, I am watching it, you are clear to the water, go, go." I don't know if he heard all of that. The storm kept chewing on the signal, but he heard enough. The 6 shapes hit the surf line, and out beyond them the dark hump of one of the boats came in closer than it had any right to, the coxswain bringing it through chop that should have flipped it, because that's what those men do for each other. It took them maybe 4 minutes to get off that beach. 4 minutes is a long time. I lay there the whole time with my crosshair on the high corner, because if I was wrong, if there had been 2 shooters and not 1, those 4 minutes would be when the second one made his move. My finger stayed near the trigger. My eye stayed on the rocks. I did not let myself feel anything yet. The corner stayed dark. The last shape went over the side of the boat, and the boat dug in and pulled away from the land, and the storm closed over the cove again, and that was it. That was it, the thing I had been holding for what felt like a year just let go all at once. I put my forehead down in the mud, and I stayed like that for a moment. Akafir put his hand flat on my back, not saying anything, just leaving it there. The rain kept coming down. My hands were shaking now, finally, now that there was nothing left to hold steady. We held our position another hour before we got the word to move. You don't relax just because the worst is over. The worst loves to come back for the people who relax. So we lay there in the cold and the wet and we watched the empty beach until they told us it was time to come home. I didn't say much on the way out. I didn't say much for a few days, honestly. It was 3 days later that I met them. I was sitting in a chow hall that smelled like burnt coffee and a man sat down across from me. Big quiet guy, a few days of beard, eyes that had seen a lot of beaches. He looked at me for a second and he said, "You Quill?" I said I was. "I'm Bishop." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. He didn't say thank you. I think people expect that to be the moment, the big thanks, the speech. It wasn't. He just looked at me for a long while and then he said real quiet, "We couldn't hear anything. We were calling and calling. We thought nobody knew we were there." "I knew," I said. "I had you the whole time, I just couldn't reach you." He nodded slow, like that meant more to him than anything I could have said. Then he reached across and put his hand over my hand on the table for just a second, the way you'd steady something fragile, and he took it back, and he got up, and he left. That was the whole conversation. To this day, it's one of the most important conversations of my life. People hear this story and they want it to be about the shot, the impossible shot in the storm, the one in a million, and I understand why. It makes a good story, but it was never about the shot for me. It was about being the only one who knew. There's a particular kind of loneliness in that, knowing that 6 men are out there in the dark, calling for help that can't reach them, and you're the only soul on earth who knows it, and the storm has cut every cord but the one running through you. The shot was just the thing my hands did. The hard part, the real part, was deciding I would not look away, that I would lie in that mud and find them and stay with them even when there was nothing I could do but watch. I think about that cove on the bad nights. I think about how close it came. 1 degree of wind, 1/2 second the curtain didn't lift, and that's 6 families getting a folded flag instead of a phone call. It scares me even now. It should. Anybody who tells you a night like that doesn't scare them is lying to you or to themselves. But here's what I hold on to. The storm took everything that night. It took the light, it took the radio, it took their voices, it took their SOS and swallowed it whole and gave nothing back. The whole world had gone deaf to 6 men dying on a beach. And it turned out that wasn't quite everything. Because the storm couldn't take the one thing that mattered. It couldn't take the fact that someone, somewhere up on a cold ridge, was still watching, still counting the gaps, still refusing to look away. The sea is bigger than all of us. It really is. It can drown a signal and a boat and a man without slowing down for any of it. But it can't drown the choice to stay. That part it never gets to have.